Boom, what's up, familia? Dayspring here with an episode of Power of X-Men, where we are going to discuss issue 2 of the Phoenix series. And I have to tell you, I'm a bit on the fence with this series. I want to start off by saying that this is a solid series in terms of writing and pacing and plotting. Writer Stephanie Phillips is telling a really tight story so far. And one of the things I appreciate is that Jean really does feel like a cosmic hero. And that's something that we have never really seen her be. You know, we got a glimpse of it in the Generations standalone issue between Phoenix and Jean Grey. But for the most part, any story regarding Jean and the Phoenix leads to a lot of tragedy and introspection for Jean. And that's fine. You know, we love gritty stories out there. We love them quite a bit. But sometimes I just want to see Jean empowered with the Phoenix and having a good old time saving the galaxy. And I do feel we kind of get that vibe here, right? Rachel, of course, had the Phoenix for a very long time. I was like, in Excalibur and other stories, and we got to see her just be normal with the Phoenix, and she is a daughter of the Phoenix. And Jean, who is the White Phoenix of the Crown, you would think that not every time Jean has a Phoenix, it has to lead to a cosmic, earth-shattering event that ends with Jean dying, right? Sometimes you just want to see God Queen sailing the cosmos with that big old Phoenix Raptor. We don't really need to see Jean dying at the end of every Phoenix-centered story, or like Inferno, Madeline dying, right? So I really appreciate just seeing Jean being a cosmic hero. And you know, if you're going to do a standalone series for a character, if you want any longevity or success with the character, you want to create their own rogues gallery. You don't want to borrow from anywhere else. I mean, that's why I was talking about this was, oh God, with someone. It may have been Wolver Steve, may have been my no, I think it was my bro friend David down here, who we have an episode coming up with. But one of the things that makes the Wolverine series, you know, historically great is that Wolverine has his own Wolverine villains, right? Who eventually do translate into larger X-Men stories, but these are characters that have it out for Wolverine. They have a personal vendetta against Wolverine, and that's why we have very compelling stories regarding it, right? Think of Lady Deathstrike, her connections to Wolverine, and how he was instrumental in the death of her father. That is what you need to do in order to build a very compelling solo series. And that's exactly what Stephanie Phillips is doing here with Adani. And who knows about Adani's story? And we can get into that here, but you can't say that Stephanie Phillips isn't trying to give Jean a compelling villain. I mean, Adani, we're going to see as the story progresses, Adani has issues with Jean. She is the one who is narrating the series. You're seeing a lot from her perspective. And that's exactly what you need for a character, especially a character like Jean, who is this compelling cosmic hero. And there is this dichotomy between Jean and Adani. Jean is ascending into godhood. She's going around the cosmos trying to save as many people as she can. And Adani just lost a family member. She's literally throwing dirt on her father. That is a very grounded, I want to say human. She's not human, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's a very human emotion. It's a very real emotion she's feeling, while Jean is this larger than life cosmic hero. I mean, that is a wonderful balance because, again, at the same time, Jean is balancing her. Her sort of position in life right now, being a god or being just a mere mortal. I mean, these are wonderful themes to play out, and I'm really glad that we're seeing that unfold in this Jean series. So again, Stephanie Phillips, I think, is doing a wonderful job as a writer in terms of pacing and plotting. I think any qualms I have, which we're going to get into, are sort of more nuanced. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of the issue, I want to really address the elephant in the room regarding Alessandro Miracolo's art. And for those of you who may not know, online we've seen panels from Miracolo's art in issue 1 that looks suspiciously similar to Oliver Coipel's art, and specifically from Avengers vs. X-Men issue 1, House of M number 2 and 4. And, you know, these are pretty serious comparisons here, and I find it incredibly curious to me that Miracolo would do something so similar. And this is all, of course, alleged. I don't believe anyone at Marvel or Stephanie or Alessandro have said anything regarding this. So this is all alleged, but online fans have pulled these comparisons. It's sort of you sort of can't argue otherwise that they don't look similar. They look very suspiciously similar, and even the art for issue 2 has been updated and those similarities have been removed. And it's really upsetting because this has really overshadowed the series. Oh, I'm so sorry to say that. And it's really upsetting because, as we just discussed, there are a lot of themes being played out here that merit some sort of analysis, merit some kind of discussion. And unfortunately, online, a lot of the conversation, and I know us Jean fans focus in a lot on Jean and her perspective, but I'm talking about maybe the more larger folks in the comic book community. They are focusing in on these panel by panel comparisons. And it's really a shame because, when we had the Louise Simonson series come out in the fall, and, many of you who engage with Power of X-Men, who sort of know I'm a crazy Jean stan, I was sort of also on the fence with that series, and there were some things I didn't like, but we could have a very healthy discussion about what was going on with Jean and what sort of was going on with her inner monologue and consciousness as following the events of the Hellfire Gala. And Louise Simon said had posed a question: is the Phoenix something Jean created, or is the Phoenix something that came to Jean and bonded with her? And the idea that Jean created the Phoenix posed a lot of really interesting things out there, which is the Phoenix, every time it manifests in the Marvel Universe, is that the manifestation of Jean's will, even if it's possessing another host. I love that. And we could have hours of discussions on this online. And with this, I really am sad about the Miracolo art because a lot of people just pointed out, it's like, oh, well, that art. And it's like, oh, there's just so much more happening here. And in regards to the art, I just want to say that it is a shame that these similarities exist because I think the art is very beautiful. I think Miracolo is a wonderful match for this book. It reminds me so much of the Generations Phoenix and Jean Grey series that that feels like a natural progression of what happened in that story. And if you want a Phoenix solo series with Phoenix out in the cosmos, in space, battling larger than life villains, you want it to look like that. I mean, listen, I love Jean Grey in space. Right here, or sure. That's how I prefer my Jean. I love Jean in space. So I don't think these similarities needed to be done. I'm curious why they were done. If you were gonna have these similarities, these alleged similarities, why would you pull from major issues like Avengers versus X-Men and House of M? I mean, these are stories that are in the Marvel canon that fans are rereading every day. People are going to notice this. It's pretty serious out there. And again, it hasn't been addressed. I know there's also similarities from All New X-Men with Stuart Immonen. So, let's see how things unfold. I'm curious, is Phoenix supposed to be an ongoing series, or is it going to end with issue 5? I think those are question marks. We were talking with Jason Lowe, who is a writer for Dazzler, and he was telling me that there are discussions if the Dazzler series should continue or not. They're waiting to see how sales and reactions are, of course, but Dazzler right now is only planned for 4 issues. And, that's something we've seen in the X office, that they're only planning things for 4 to 5 issues, letting sort of the market decide if it should continue. If it is only 5 issues, we are halfway through the series right now. And I would want a little bit more of Jean. But anyways, okay. All right. Let's dive into this and discuss this as a community. All right. So it opens up with our God Queen saving the universe. I mean, this is amazing. This put the biggest smile on my face. Just Jean going around the cosmos, saving kids, defeating monsters, blowing things up. That is what I want out of a God Queen. And Adani talks about that no matter what was going on, Jean was there to save it. And that Jean, as Phoenix, has this limitless power within her, but Jean Grey, the woman, was exhausted. And here's the thing about Adani. She's not irrationally angry at Jean. So whatever is going to happen, how we see everything going on with Jean and Adani, Adani has a good perspective on Jean. That is, again, that is key. This isn't someone who blindly hates Jean, doesn't understand Jean. She's looking at Jean for who she is and not being blinded by rage. I love that. I'm always such a big fan. With your arch nemesis, it's easy to just hate someone. It's hard to understand the people you don't get along with. I'm a big proponent of understanding people. Anyways, so Jean is like really tired. She's getting back to her ship. That I did Cyclops build the ship? I think Cyclops built it. I love this ship. I love that big window. I'm a big window person. As you can see, like 75% of my apartment is all windows. In fact, it's such an issue because we can't mount any art, champagne tears. But I love this window with the bed right there. Jean has a view of the vastness of the universe. I just love it. On one hand, her Phoenix persona is like, yes, let's sail the cosmos. And the other, the Jean Grey, who's mortal, is just like, look at this breathtaking view. You wouldn't get that in today's market. It'd be like $5 billion. But she gets a distress call and she goes to help the person that's sending this distress call. And wouldn't you know it, is her father-in-law Corsair. And so his ship is about to explode. Jean saves him. And I thought this panel was really interesting because Jean is powered up as the Phoenix here, and she's flying through the dead of space. And Corsair is in a pink force field. Now we know pink is Jean's color signature in terms of her powers. And I love that for her father-in-law, she's encasing him in her own power. She could easily do it with the Phoenix. I don't know. I mean, maybe, depending on who the writer is and the era, Jean's power fluctuate here and there, as a Phoenix. But as of right now, what I'm seeing here, it looks like Jean is telekinetically holding her father-in-law, and it's Jean's power. It's not the Phoenix, it's Jean. Jean is the one who is concerned with her father-in-law. I bet it's a Phoenix like, oh, I have to burn away what doesn't work, and that means you, Corsair. I still love those Morrison plots, but anyway, so then we get Adani, and Adani is burying her father. And it's, a really heartbreaking scene. It really spoke to me because it's really hard to bury a loved one. And those of us who have unfortunately had to do it, there's so much emotion that comes on there and the dirt on the body, right? I mean, I'm not saying I ever bury like actually grabbed a shovel, but I could really understand that writing of being a young child having to bury a parent and throw dirt on it. I haven't lost a parent, but I've lost loved ones, and the idea of them being in the ground, no longer here, like in this realm with you. I want to say Earth, but clearly she's not on Earth, but you know what I mean. It's really hard. And I think Adani is in a place of a lot of pain. And Pericus, Pericus, the Thor villain, comes to her and offers her power. And she's aware of it. She understands that this isn't a good person, but she accepts that power because, when someone you love passes, you're not in the right frame of mind. Someone you love is gone, and someone's going to give you ultimate power to seek vengeance against the death of this person. Grief compels you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise do. It puts you in a different state of mind. It is a powerful moment that we're seeing here with Adani. And Perica says, "Are you still afraid, Adani?" And Adani's like, "I was never afraid." By the way, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing all these names. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. So okay, so back on Jean's ship. This is a scene where I don't know how I feel about this scene. You're okay. Let's get into it. Gina's talking to Cyclops, and Cyclops is like, "What do you mean, my dad? Oh, I don't trust that guy." And Corsair comes out in a towel, and Cyclops is like, "Wait, is my father there naked?" Ah! And Jean's like, "Scott, I gotta go." And Jean is talking to Corsair, and Corsair is basically telling her that he got word that something was going down in Game World, that a ship kind of comes once a week, no papers or paying the guards under the table. And once the ship docks and leaves, there's a wave of a lot of disappearance. And Corsair has recognized the ship as belonging to the Black Order, and they need to investigate. And so they do. And they go to investigate what's going on with the Black Order. And it looks like they have taken a bunch of scrolls. And Jean is there and she's here like, I don't know what's going on, but you're going to explain yourself. And Proxima is like, I don't need to tell you anything. And they start fighting. And Jean senses something and she goes to save someone, only to find out that they are on a planet full of Asgardian zombies. And that's it. That's the issue. Sorry, my voice squeaked there. No QR code. I don't believe there's a QR code. Let me see right here. No QR code. I always miss the QR code. Always miss that QR code. Okay, so let's unpack some of this stuff. Okay, the good, which I've already ranted about, which is seeing Jean as a cosmic hero. I love Jean as a cosmic hero. You're going to tell me she's on some kind of planet fighting Asgardian zombies? Sign me up. Love it. I'm here for it. Her fighting, these larger than life villains, having her own rogues gallery. I think this is all key for Jean. You're giving her worthy adversaries, right? Again, it never made sense to me in the Hellfire Gala massacre that Moira could get the one up on Jean. I know we've talked about this at nauseum, that Jean was probably distracted, all this stuff to couldn't sense Moira. But this is, I mean, Jean is Omega level mutant. She is now imbued with the Phoenix. She's larger than the universe kind of deal. You got to give her good villains to fight against, right? And I think Jean struggling to be human is something that is a hallmark of Phoenix stories, but it shouldn't be glossed over this time around. I do eventually want her to reach a point where her being the Phoenix is just second nature. It's part of her power set. I know there's always this big question mark and conundrum when it comes to Jean and the Phoenix, which is from an editorial and writing standpoint, how do you have a character like Jean on just any old team because she's so powerful? I think it's an imaginary world. You can set those limitations, but I would use Rachel as sort of the model for that. I'm not saying in terms of storyline or anything like that, but I think the way Rachel was able to coexist with the Phoenix powers in something like Excalibur, I would take note of that. And you can have Jean still be the Phoenix if you're going to return her to Earth, and it doesn't always have to be like an editorial conundrum. Just have Jean as with Phoenix powers. I think you can work within those parameters by setting them. But for this issue, I do love seeing that kind of dichotomy with Jean struggling to be a god and a human. I love that her power effects. We saw this in the last issue where she was flying to go save something, and it was her powers that were clearly distinguished on the panel, which was there's a Phoenix power and then there's the Jean power, and we're seeing that here with Corsair. Love that. It's really good. In terms of what I think should be improved upon, there's some things here that I kind of like cocked my head at. One of them is I do feel a disconnect with Jean in terms of the narration. And I know that's a curious thing to say because this is a Phoenix centered story and Jean is not missing from here, but I think maybe the Adani narration is very good. And I think that we're getting a deep insight into Adani and how she sees Jean and not sort of what Jean is struggling with. It is demanding something from the reader in that, you're seeing Jean from one perspective, which is this girl Adani's perspective, and you kind of have to fish out what Jean is feeling and sort of the struggle Jean is going through. I personally like that. I'm not against that. I think that is a really smart way of going about something, especially if you have to establish a rogues gallery for Jean. But I think for readers who may not be so attuned with Jean or probably just want to read an issue, or Jean's struggles here are going to be glossed over, right? And again, I mean, Jean is a Phoenix. And yet, when she's dealing with her father-in-law, when she's talking to Scott, I mean, look at this panel right here. That's her pink signature energy. Jean is reaching across the universe to talk to Scott. It's not the Phoenix, it's Jean. And I love that. But again, this is not a point that's made. That's a point you have to observe. And that's fine. That's fine. I don't want to take away from the beauty of that. I think that's a really interesting approach to the writing, but it does lead you as a reader to feel disconnected from Gene. And here's the thing. Oh, how can I say this? I think with the exception of the Louise Simonson series and sort of the end of Krakoa, Gene was felt a little removed from Krakoa. We had come off the heels of X-Men Red and X-Men Disassembled and Age of X-Men, where we got a lot of insight into Jean and sort of her coming back post-death, to Krakoa, where Jean was sort of background until that Louise Simonson issue, until we got that finale in Fall of X. I kind of felt like I was missing something from Jean's narration. Hickman is a very talented writer, but Hickman writes her very cold, and she was just so briefly on X-Force. So she felt more like secondary cast. That now we finally have Jean as primary cast again. I kind of want to be in Jean's head. I want her perspective on, wow, everything just went down with Hellfire Gala, Krakoa, and now I'm in space. I mean, I'm curious how she feels about everything. I'm sure we will get that. This is an issue regarding, and when I mean issue, I mean like not the comic issue, just like a conversation issue. It's an issue regarding of how comics are being published, right? You can't tackle everything just in that first one or two issues. So of course we're going to let that slide. But as a Gene fan, as a primary target audience for this book, I would really want to see a little bit more of a focus on Gene's inner monologue, right? That's I'm not saying it's not there. I think they're doing well by her there. I think they're doing well by putting those innuendos there. Now, mm, I don't know how I feel about this scene with Corsair. Here's a comment on the art. They draw him very sly. He's drawn very sly, like a sleazy pirate, which is what he is. But there's a lot of I'm questioning, why does this scene exist, right? There is obviously a lot of sexual innuendo here from Corsair, whether you like her, and it's deliberate. It's deliberate. I'm trying to zoom in on it here, but it's deliberate. I mean, he is sitting on Jean's bed. He is sitting on Jean's bed in a towel with his legs spread open. As someone who's married, if my one of my in-laws did this, I would be grossed out beyond the telling of it. It's just so weird to put this here. I don't understand. Corsair and Jean have never had this weird relationship, right? I can't believe Gina's even tolerating it, right? And Cyclops has every right to be like, is my dad naked? Like, I get it. Listen, I've been at my in-laws' house and I get out of the shower. Someone's, it sees me because I'm in my town. I'm like, oh, sorry. And I go rushing into my bedroom, right? Like, that is fine. Like, that slap happy family drama that happens to everyone. And I don't mind it. But the fact that he is just there in the towel in her bedroom, sitting on her bed, spreading his legs, it is weird. And I don't know what we're trying to accomplish there from a storytelling perspective. I don't understand the purpose of this. Is it to show that Corsair's creepy? Is it to show that there may be some kind of sexual tension there? I don't understand the actual mechanics of the scene and what it is trying to accomplish to the reader. That is just, I don't, is it supposed to be eye candy for Daddy Corsair? Is this supposed to be meaningless? It does not feel, I'm telling you, as a Jean Grey stan who is neurotic, who overreads into things, I'm telling you, I don't understand it. As well as being a casual literary reader, right, who just finished Sarah Gerard's new book. Nothing to do with X-Men, but just saying that I casually, as a casual reader who can look at things and how scenes are put together, this is just so incredibly awkward. I don't get it. Again, he's sitting on her bed, legs spread open. It's not just one shot. Then the next panel, he's still on the bed, laid back with his legs still spread open. And then he gets up and his towels over him like that. I don't understand the mechanics of the scene. And what's more, I think where we have this awkward scene when it could have been a different scene altogether, because Jean has been dead for 13 years. I know this is something we all forget because she has been featured for such a long time. But Jean was very largely absent editorially from the years of 2003 all the way to 2017, 2018 when she returned in Phoenix Resurrection, right? A lot happened in between those years where Jean was missing. She has not had a lot of panel time with Corsair. In fact, I can only think of the time when she was on Krakoa in issue 1 of Jonathan Hickman's X-Men, where they all have a Summers family dinner. This would be the perfect opportunity for Corsair to be like, "Hey, you've been dead for a long time, Jean. Hey, do you remember? Do you have the memories of your teenage self when she came and was mixed up with the trial of Jean Grey when the Shi'ar tried to put her on trial for your sins? Do you remember being venomized and dying and reassembling yourself molecule by molecule? There there was a lot that happened in between her death, and Teen Jean had a lot of moments with Corsair. So I think this would be the opportunity for them to sort of flesh that out, to talk about those moments, to acknowledging that history. Because again, Jean and Corsair don't this adult Jean and Corsair don't have a lot of panel time, and it would be fun to see their dynamic as daughter-in-law and father-in-law. I would be so curious to see that. In the X-Men animated series, Corsair did say to Cyclops, like, tell me about that redhead who kicked Deken's ass. And Cyclops is like, oh, she's calmed down a little bit. Corsair's like, oh, she reminded me a lot of your mother. I'll tell you about that someday, kid. So, okay, maybe that has always been there. Maybe Stephanie Phillips has sort of picked up on that. But I think this is too overt. How about that? So, I think this was a missed opportunity with Corsair and Jean. Instead of planting like this weird seed, this kind of awkward moment between them, I would have leaned into more of a familial aspect of it. And I hate to be that person saying, I would have done this, but less about what I would have done as a writer and more looking at this as what does this scene service to the overall story and to Jean and Corsair? What am I supposed to take away from it? Not taking away much other than Corsair's kind of sleazy, and that's something that is being driven here in terms of story, that Corsair is not a trustworthy person. Cyclops says it, I don't trust that guy. I don't understand why he doesn't trust his father. No, Cyclops has a lot of daddy issues. However, a lot of those issues have been confronted in the last few years, right? With the Cyclops series, when he was Teen Cyclops and he had these adventures with the Starjammers, he sort of got his moment to be with his dad, and also that Krakoan issue where they all had a Summers family dinner. It's just curious that they're really leaning into Corsair being very sleazy. Are they planting the seed here that Corsair may be the big bad of the series? Maybe the father-in-law is a big bad. I mean, that's what I'm led to believe here. On one hand, I'm thinking this is going to go nowhere. Gina's just doing a tour of Marvel Cosmos. Corsair happens to be part of it. But if this is a 5-issue series, I mean, Corsair is a large chunk of this. And is Corsair in the end going to betray Jean and is secretly working with the Black Order? I don't know. I don't know. But it's stuff that we're going to lean into. My curiosity is, of course, piqued. I mean, you have Jean, the very definition of life incarnate versus Asgardian zombies. And, the Phoenix and the Asgardians have a very complicated history. So I hope they lean into that. And again, this is brilliant writing. We see the dichotomy of Jean, the life force, versus zombies, a death force, right? I don't know. I'm making this up, but zombies dead, Phoenix equals life and rebirth. This is pretty interesting. And again, it's layered with the very convoluted history that the Phoenix has with the Asgardians. Stephanie Phillips is planting a lot of really great seeds here. I'm curious to see where this is all going to go, but this issue, very middle of the road. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I don't think we needed all that weirdness with Corsair and Jean. And I am really sorry that a lot of the discourse online has to deal with the art. But anyways, Familia, that is our review of Phoenix issue number 2 by Stephanie Phillips and Alessandro Miracolo, with really great coloring by David Curell. Give your own feels. We all have feels. Give yours out there to the internet. Slide into our DMs at Power of X-Men. Now, if you want to stay, here's our post-credit scene. I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to discuss the Maikex Phoenix. I just got her a week or so ago. I haven't done an official unboxing for her. I thought we could open her up here as a familia. So if you just came for the Phoenix review, you've had it. Here's your post-credit scene right here, post-credit rant of the Maikex Phoenix. Now, a lot of you may know this about me or may not know this about me. I am big on the Maikex figures. I love the Maikex figures. That to me, I love them so much. I'm not saying they're not without their flaws. They're very flimsy. They're very expensive. Up until this Phoenix figure, I would have said they don't always ship on time, but this one shipped on time perfectly. After I said it, I was like, "Oh, don't get your hopes up on the Phoenix Maikex shipping in July. We're going to see her probably in December because Maikex is notoriously behind on everything." But no, she came. So eating my words. Sorry, it's because I've been juggling this around. All the parts are flying everywhere. So. This is a Maikex Phoenix. Very curious that we got a Maikex Phoenix. They seem to be all over the place. We're doing Classic X-Men. We're doing X Factor. We're doing Age of Apocalypse, which we're getting a Nate. By the way, I got this wonderful Nate figure sent by a friend who engages with the podcast. I am so happy that I have another Nate figure and I get to take him around with me on all my adventures. But we are getting a Maikex Snake. This is not it. This is a Marvel most wanted Toy Biz figure of Nate, which I think, not being biased, still holds up. Okay. So, the shipping on this is really coincidental because Hasbro is also shipping right now their Phoenix figure. So I don't have that one yet, so I can't make a proper comparison. But I will tell you, this is a beautiful figure. I mean, look at the shading on her hair. Look at that face. Oh, she is powered up. This is definitely 70s Phoenix John Byrne. Oh, my goodness, I just love it. The windswept hair. You know, it's how you do a Phoenix figure. Ever since that Toy Biz light up Phoenix figure, this is how you do it. Oh, let me stop sharing my screen here so you can actually see. This is such a wonderful figure. I love her very much. She doesn't feel as flimsy as past Maikex figures, right? Psylocke and Cyclops, for example, feel very flimsy. Look at that metallic paint deco on her sash, on her boots, on her gloves. Really great, very clean Phoenix emblem. She's very like the painting is very matted. I love it very much. Um, she comes with alternate heads, which we're going to put in right here. That's her somber head. Looks a lot like, in fact, I think it probably is just a redo of the maskless 90s Jean figure. And then we have a very classic Jean here, classic Jean Phoenix with her face like this. She's like, I'm angry with like the very wavy curly hair. I think they all look great. Now, this is a pricey figure. And because it's a pricey figure, we're going to talk about, is it worth the price? Now, I was talking about this with Flink, and he was on the fence if he should get it because he really does love these heads. I think Gambit, right? Thinking that Gambit is one of the best Maikex X-Men figures that they've produced out there. I think Gambit is a wonderful, wonderful Maikex figure who comes with a lot of accessories, a lot of power effects that when you see that price point, you're like, okay, but fair. With this is all we get, and you're paying top retail dollar for it. I mean, you do get a stand here. Why aren't there any Phoenix effects? Like fire on one of these hands, right? I don't need an extra sash. Give me a little flame. You know what I mean? Give me a little flame right there. It's unfortunate. I think if this figure was like $60, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Overpriced. It is a market. It is a world we live in. $60 for a figure, a highly articulate Japanese Maikex figure, whatever. It's a crappy price, but whatever. It is what it is. How much did I pay for it? Let's see. I'm going to tell you how much I paid for it. I completely forgot. I mean, it was almost $100, if not over $100. I paid 104.99 for this figure. She's not worth $100. I'm sorry, Familia. I I love my Maikex figures. I love my Maikex figures. I would buy this in a heartbeat again. By the way, look at that. Look at the detail there with her costume. Her the black neck part extends to the back. Love that. I would buy this figure again. I would pre-order her, but I would only need one. And I think you should wait until she's on discount to buy her. Let's see if she's still available on Big Bad Toy Store. Yeah, she's still available on Big Bad Toy Store for $104. I would wait. I would wait. And she's obviously going to get repainted at some point to be Dark Phoenix. So, they're really maximizing. They're going to maximize this mold, but it's a great figure, just not worth the price. It is an absurd price for this figure. But if you are a Gene fan, if you want it, the figure itself is not bad. By no means is this a bad figure. Again, it's just not worth that price point. It is a very lofty price point, and I don't think that's. I am kind of disappointed that Mafex would give us such a half-ass Phoenix figure. I mean, this is huge. This had the potential to be one of their most selling items, and I think sadly it's not. I think Storm, I think Gambit, Psylocke with all her accessories. I think those are good examples of what a Mafex figure can do and why you're paying so much for that. But this one, it's kind of a question mark on it. Let's see how the new Hasbro one shakes out. I've been all over the place with those emotions. Similarly, when I was looking at the figures, photos online of the Marvel Legends Emma, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And in real life, I love that Emma figure quite a bit. So I will say that those are sort of my emotions too with that new deluxe Phoenix figure that's out there. All right, Familia. There you have it. Phoenix issue 2 and Mafex Phoenix. Drop your feels in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you can send me a DM at Power of X-Men. You can hit me up on email if you want at paul@powerofxmen.com. I'm very slow to respond to everyone, but I do get those emails of folks who do email me their thoughts on the shows or anything that we've seen out there. Love to hear from the Familia. What do we have in terms of the podcast coming up? We do have a lot scheduled, and I'm really excited for it. Um, it's just every time I say we're going to do X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z doesn't pan out, and then something else pans out. But how about this? I do have an interview with Jason Lowe, who is the Dazzler writer that is recorded and in the can. We do have an episode again with Scott Lobdell, and we have more interviews planned in the coming weeks. So be on the lookout for that. Lots of exciting stuff with Power of X-Men. Flink and I obviously will be discussing more X-Men news and Marvel Legends. So hit us up. We would love to hear from you. And thank you so much, Familia.